I talk a lot on my podcast about like, are we giving concerts or are we giving recitals? And I would venture to say that most ensembles in school programs give recitals. They don't give concerts. Now,
Right.
some people will take issue with me on that one because, well, we're going to define a concert. Okay, we're not going to Merriam-Webster right now.
You are listening to the Music Ed Mentor podcast, where we teach music educators how to build, manage, and grow thriving school music programs and have long and happy careers. Let's do this thing. Welcome to episode 9 of the Music Ed Mentor podcast. I am your host, Elisa Jones. You can follow my music education blog at professionalmusiceducator.com or find me on Facebook at Professional Music Educator with Elisa Jones. In this episode, my guest host is Ryan Guth. If you're a choral director, you've probably heard his podcast, Choir Ninja. Ryan believes that the key to running an excellent choral program is more than just being a great musician. Successful choral directors must become masters of communication, motivation, marketing, and using technology to save time. And I think that can be said about all music teachers, no matter what subject we happen to be teaching this year. Today, I bring on Ryan to talk about how to put on the perfect performance, all of the logistics from how you can select the ideal repertoire that will both educate your students and engage your audience, the exact steps you need to take to mitigate the risks your performance will go completely off the rails, and the essential tasks to check off after the performance has ended. I guarantee you're going to glean new ideas for your next performance right now. And speaking of selecting repertoire, this podcast episode is brought to you by Alfred Music, the leader in educational print music publishing. Looking for repertoire for your upcoming concerts? Just be sure to visit alfred.com. Without further ado, let's bring on Ryan. All right, so Ryan, why don't you give our listeners a little bit of your background and experience?
All right. Well, my name is Ryan Guth, and I am the founder of the Choir Ninja podcast, which started about almost 2.5 years ago at this point. And it was really it was actually called Find Your Forte at the time. And it was meant to showcase the greatest minds in the choral world. And we have people all the way from legends like the late Helen Kemp to people like Helmut Rilling, to Joseph Flummerfelt and Craig Hella Johnson, and people that are up and coming now like Eugene Rogers. And these are just hour-long, a little less than hour-long interviews. And then what started to happen was I started to put together some weekly tips I called Technique Tuesday, and those really started to take off. So back in February of 2017, we flipped the format from Find Your Forte, which is mostly profiles with these little bits of advice in between, to Choir Ninja, which is now all about solutions you never saw coming. This is all the things to make you a ninja of your choral program. So that's where I am at this point.
Awesome. And your teaching background, you actually started in middle school, right?
Yep, I started teaching in 6th through 8th grade in a pretty affluent town in central New Jersey, where I had a very ivory tower situation. I had 7 ensembles, and I saw them more than their math teacher saw them. And I, too, dealt with the most high maintenance parents you could possibly find, and I had a difficult administration because I had high expectations people all around me. So I know all the political ins and outs of that, working in that kind of environment, and also creating engaging concerts, because believe me, when you live in a town like that, everybody else has something to do. Everybody's got something to do besides go to your concerts. So you have to make them want to come.
You're telling me I teach at the private Catholic school in my town. It's very hoity-toity.
Right, exactly. It's sometimes you're like, can you put your cell phone down like during the concert? You know, like we would have parents that would want to get up and walk out the door, in the middle of a song, and because their BlackBerry rang, or could tell how old I am right now. But the goal was, okay, create engaging concerts, because mom and dad are supposed to come, right? They're obligated to come if Poopsie is singing in the concert. And my goal was, I want them to want to put their cell phone down. If their stockbroker calls, I don't want them to answer. I want them to choose to enjoy the concert. So that was always the goal in that situation.
Nice. And I actually saw a video of one of your handbell groups playing "Rollin' in the Deep." That was an awesome arrangement.
That I have to tell you, so that was like an interesting time in my life, because that was the time that I tried to make handbells cool, and I succeeded for a little while, and until I moved. I actually ran that group, and we did stuff like that. We were sponsored by Malmark handbells, and we had all the handbells we'd ever want, which I joke and say is that's like a wish I never wanted to have come true, right? All the handbells you never want.
Cool. Well, hey, we are talking in this episode all about how to put on the perfect performance, basically from the point you are selecting music all the way until after the performance is done. So I'm super, super glad that you are joining me today. So let's just start out with, how do we pick good music that is enjoyable to us, to the audience, to the kids? We have so many stakeholders that we have to please, and yet we also have to incorporate it into our curriculum. Any thoughts on that?
So this is really important because it's the basis for your entire performance. I mean, you and I were talking earlier before recording and talking about the fact that if your repertoire is inappropriate for your choir, your band, or whatever your ensemble is that's performing, it doesn't matter how well the logistics go, right? So you can have a perfectly timed concert, you can have the most beautiful lighting, and you can have an audience of 1,000, but if you've chosen repertoire that is not appropriate for the particular ensemble, then you've made a horrible error, right? So, I think when choosing your music, you need to be conscious of the level of the ensemble that you're teaching. I know as egotistical choir directors sometimes, and I was one too, believe me, we come out of college expecting that our choir is going to be a lot more capable than they are, because we just left this grand choral collegiate experience, and now we're teaching 8th grade.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah.
And we think that these kids are going to be capable of doing what we were doing just last year. And so I think the general rule of thumb that I've always heard, I've heard it on interviews in my show, and I've really come to believe this, that you need to err on the side of easier, especially if you're a new teacher. That's for sure. And you know what? It's you have to think about, from a personal development side, like, why are you choosing that repertoire?
Right.
Are you choosing that repertoire to show off in some way, or are you choosing it for the benefit of the education of your students? And if it's the latter, then you ought to choose repertoire that is building upon a particular skill that you're looking for them to achieve. So, maybe it's the beginning of the year, and for a lot of people, it is close to the beginning of the year when this episode comes out. What kind of things have you evaluated about your ensemble at this point? What are the things that they need to work on? Maybe it's, for a wind ensemble, some type of, maybe long tone breath control, something like that. Or whether it may be for a choral ensemble, it's sustaining a long phrase. Well, so maybe the repertoire that you choose, at least maybe for one or two of the pieces in the concert, focuses on like long, beautiful phrases. So look at what that goal is for your ensemble, rather what is not the goal for you as this, highly educated, professor of music.
I would much rather have my students know the piece well ahead of time so that we can then incorporate some of the emotion and the meaning behind it. Don't you think?
Absolutely. You want to strive for that connection, so that the notes are the last thing that they're worried about the day of the concert.
Yeah, and I think we tend to err on that side a little too often, that we're still, just nailing down a couple notes and rhythms here and there, even a couple days before the concert. So I think planning it out so that you are way prepared, way ahead of time, because there's always more that you can add besides notes and rhythms and accuracy.
Right. And you're right. At least, the other thing to be said about that is that if you're planning repertoire appropriately based on the technique, the difficulty level of your ensemble, then if you're planning appropriately, you're going to have that piece done, and concert ready before it needs to be concert ready, because you've chosen the correct repertoire.
Right. So I love this little, I just stole this from a blog post from Smart Music, actually. It was written by Bruce Pearson. That's the guy. And he recommends making sure you have 5 pieces: an opener, a major work, a quiet piece, a feature or a pop tune, and then a closer. And this was something that I always learned too, and I know that you've talked about in your podcast, is the closer has to leave them whistling or singing their way out the door. What do you think?
Sure, I agree. And there was a gentleman by the name of Paul Head, who is the director of choral activities at the University of Delaware. And I think I was in a seminar once with him, and he said, "Send him home humming." And I agree with that. And I would also like to add, or send them home thinking. Um, and Joseph Lummerfelt, my former teacher at Westminster Choir College, when he was wrapping up a concert, he always used to say, we're going to send them home with a good night kiss. So, and for him, that was singing this beautiful rendition of Danny Boy. And, if it's your Christmas concert, I recently ended a Christmas concert with a piece called The Work of Christmas by Dan Forrest, which is a ballad. It wasn't necessarily like a rousing gospel tune or something like that. It was a ballad. And it really just set the tone for people to move into the Christmas season thinking about the things that really matter, more so than candy canes and jingle bells and things like that. So I think send them home humming or send them home thinking.
So let's move into like logistics and talk about what has to happen before, during, and after the performance. So walk us through that, Ryan. What do you think?
I recently did a 4-part series on this called So Awkward. And it was about avoiding awkward concerts. Because it's very easy to have an awkward concert if you don't perform it right. That means like the crickets between, you getting up and walking to the piano or walking to your students, or the kids coming in and that kind of thing. It is very easy to have an awkward concert. So I want to take all the guesswork out of it. So I'll share with you some of the highlights, of that series. And number 1 is diagram the flow of the concert for that evening. And meaning from when the first student arrives, or when you arrive that evening for, back at school for the concert, or wherever venue you're at, to the time that the last person leaves. Meaning, okay, it's 6:30. This is when the kids are showing up. At 6:30, we get our robes on. We're having a robe check at 6:40. We're making sure that we at least start each piece by 6:55, and at 6:55 we're going to have the inspirational pep talk. At 7 they're going to be standing outside the door ready to go in. And this is going to be in place at this point. And just, opening a Google Doc or something like that, and just using the little checkbox bullet, feature, just make a checklist of the flow for the evening. Like I said, from when people walk in the door, you walk in the door, to when pretty much you leave as the last person out that night.
I even go one step further too, because my kids are younger, and so they come in with their class. We do during the day performances rather than evening performances. So I will actually give all of the teachers a map of the performance venue, whether it's in the church that's next to our school, or the gym, and I show everybody where they're sitting, everybody's color coded. Everybody knows the way that they walk up onto the risers when it's their turn. Everybody gets a program so they know who's going where. And I even give them program notes so they can read along. And so, yeah, just the more information you can get out to your performers and all of those involved, I think the more smoothly it's going to go.
Sure. And I think to add to that is that, you're also in the business of training your audience to be great audience members as well. So whatever you can do to make your audience feel less confused, because those are the stakeholders that are showing up, right? And you would expect that most people are not regular sort of classical style concert goers. So adding things like duties of your choir members. Of course, in secondary school, that makes a little more sense. Greeters, people that pass out programs, ushers. I literally have people that bring the audience members to their seats, and we fill the seats from the front, center, back, and we fill in every seat. So there's no awkward, like sitting in the back pew type of stuff going on in the concert. That the energy level is confined to the front and center all the time. So similar to the map of the venue, like you were saying, sometimes we have students that direct people to what seat to go to. That and having a projection on the wall that explains your little cell phone policy. Hey, would you please turn your cell phone off before the performance? Maybe an announcement. Upcoming concerts, a link to a program. I do e-programs as well as printed programs.
Yeah, I think that's genius. I think that's so cool.
So just any way that you can start with the downbeat. Meaning, for me, it's start with singing for an orchestral or wind ensemble director. Start with that downbeat. The first thing that they hear as an audience when we're ready to begin the performance is music, not, hey, thanks for coming, da da da. Like, you can save that until after you've engaged your audience, with music. So whatever business you can get out of the way, I think is really important to get out of the way in digital means or through student volunteers and that kind of stuff.
I love the idea too of, if you're going to be projecting all this great information up, having maybe a little, soft backgroundy kind of music, and also a hashtag for your performance. Have you ever done that? So that as people share the photos and videos, they can just do that little hashtag?
Yeah, there was a concert last year that we did a concert hashtag. We did a concert called #Blessed.
Awesome.
And it was a concert of all spirituals and gospel music. And our hashtag for our choir, and you can probably still see this on Instagram if you are an Instagram user, you can go to #ThisChoirIsFire. And that was my high school choir last year. And we were the first choir to use that hashtag. And then when we did that concert, we put on the projection this #ThisChoirIsBlessed. If you want to hashtag any pictures from that concert. And so that's what we did. We did this #ThisChoirIsBlessed for that concert.
Love it. I might actually steal that idea for a concert for this spring. I'm just saying.
Do it.
I can credit you in the program if you want.
It's all yours. It's all yours.
Cool. So just a couple bonus tips. Make sure everybody, when you're setting up, everybody can be seen and heard. This was a big complaint that I got when I first started. Not from me, but the teacher before. She would have the kids sit in the pews in the church, and then when it was their turn to sing, she would just have them stand up. But the problem with that is that they aren't separated enough for the parents to see. So one of the big changes I made was I actually brought risers into the church. I got permission, and I trotted those kids up there onto the risers.
Yep.
And we had to practice it a couple times to make sure it went smoothly and everybody could get up and down at the same time. But that's why you have that great map.
Sure. Well, and one thing that to add to that is, if you're going to have movement, and as long as, we tiptoe on those risers, you can do this. Why not feature a solo performance during movement time? As long as if it's orchestrated correctly, you can divert audience attention away from the stage, maybe to I don't know, like far stage left, where you have a seated, guitarist, singer doing some incidental music between ensembles, so that the kids can quietly get on the risers or quietly get to their chairs.
Yeah,
um,
I've had at Christmas time, I've had kids reading scripture quotes. I've had skits
yeah.
in between for movement. And what you're actually talking about, have you ever been to like one of these big music festivals, like a bluegrass festival or wine festival?
I can't say that I have.
Because I've helped it sound at a bunch of these because I work with these sound guys. Mostly I can blame it on my fiance making me roll cable, but they actually do that where they have a smaller stage and they call it the tweeners. So what you're talking about is you need a tweener to
In
happen.
between, right?
Yeah, there you go, tweener.
Oh, great. Oh, the tweeners. Oh,
The
I like that.
tweeners.
I mean, I feel like we need to use that term cautiously with certain students, especially middle school boys, because I think we can translate tweeners pretty quickly, unfortunately, with those kids. But yeah, I mean, like just emphasizing brisk movement between ensembles, but having something where the audience is still engaged, because like once they fall off, it's hard to get them back.
Right. They open up their cell phone, they're gone.
Right. I mean, look, I'm gone in between. If I'm not engaged, I'm on the cell phone. I'm sorry. It's just what happens. I got emails to check, right?
Right.
So if I'm going to do it, and I love choir, I imagine what a parent will do.
Right. So also make sure that you schedule out the spaces that you need for rehearsals and performances. I know sometimes we think, well, I'm going to be performing in the gym. Well, you're going to be displacing the gym teacher, or, like our stage at my school is actually the band room. So I have to work with the band teacher and the gym teacher, and getting that communication out way, way, way ahead of time just mitigates the risk that you're going to have a colleague coming at you.
Right. It's better to say, I told you so.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Absolutely.
speaking of colleagues, when I taught junior high, I always worked with the drama teacher to make sure my lighting and sound and everything worked out really well. So if you don't already have somebody like that, figure it out.
Right. Those drama kids are always willing, like they don't want to go home. I found out that drama kids, for whatever reason, I hope everything's going okay at home, but they don't want to go home. So if you give them a chance to stay and do your lighting, they'll do it.
Totally.
If you
Yeah. All right. So we've talked a lot about what to do before the performance and kind of getting everything set up logistically. So let's talk about during the performance. What can we do to really make sure that everything goes down smoothly?
Well, I like to make every piece important to my audience. I mean, we talked about making sure the flow is intentional, and no dead air time, things like that. But what's really important is this idea that that you are inviting your audience into this museum environment. You are the curator of this musical museum. Every piece has to have a reason for being in that particular place in that concert. I talk a lot on my podcast about, like, are we giving concerts or are we giving recitals? And I would venture to say that most ensembles in school programs give recitals. They don't give concerts.
Right.
Now, some people will take issue with me on that one because, well, we're going to define a concert. Okay, we're not going to Merriam-Webster right now. What I mean is this a bunch of, a smattering of this, a smattering of that, because we're just want to expose kids to all these different kinds of things from different time periods. That's fine, but you can do that and still have some type of through line, because the choice of repertoire out there is so abundant. You'll never get through it in a lifetime. And I would venture to say that there are still pieces out there that no one's ever performed publicly, from several hundred years ago. I mean, they're still digging them up in Oxford, So if you want to have a through line of some type, you will find repertoire from any style, any generation, any era that can make your concert an actual concert, not just a random recital. And I think that's really important for audience engagement. And I really think that's your job as an artistic director, is to be somebody who pull together a concert with a beautiful through line, as though you are curating a walk down the hall at an art museum.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I like it to say I'm taking them on a journey and I want them to have these emotional experiences as we go through. The kids are going to learn amazing musical stuff no matter what. If we can, teach them this is so funny. With the Christmas program, I always tell them, my students, it's a contest to see who can make the audience laugh and who can make the audience cry. And that is their entire job.
If you just look at all of your decisions for your concerts through the lens of, okay, why? Right? Like that should really help you have a great performance, because you just look at it and go, okay, well, why did I do that? And if you don't have a good reason why, like figure it out. And if it's not a good reason, change it.
Right.
And you have a good reason why you did that particular thing. Why did you choose that repertoire? Why are you putting them there? Why are they wearing that uniform? Why are they holding up a sign of, 9 ladies dancing or 6 people laying, right? I mean, why? And if you have a good reason behind it, then okay, it was a good idea. So that's the intentional thing, is being able to answer why to all of those questions.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. So how do you come up with show notes? And I'm not show notes here. I'm thinking in the podcasting world, but
program notes.
Yeah, there you go. Them darn program notes. Because I've done it a variety of ways. I already said that I've had skits in between. I've used scripture readings. I've actually composed poetry to be read in between. But you talk in your material about really getting the audience connected to each piece of music. And in my own, experience right now, I'm composing program notes for 3 different performances. So I'd love to get some advice just for myself from you on how to make that happen.
Sure. I mean, I always, first of all, if you're a choral person, I think you need to understand that if you're going to sing in a foreign language and you have not translated that foreign language for your audience, you need to start doing that. So that's one part of show notes, or see, look at me, program notes. Oh my God, podcasting lingo here. Okay. Program notes is text and translations. That's essential. But also think about the fact that, like, if you are singing with beautiful tone, like super LA children's choir bel canto, right? A lot of times, especially up in a higher tessitura, some of those words are not going to be understood like plain English, because you're going to have to modify vowels and things like that. So sometimes it's really important for the English text or the text of the language that your audience speaks to be in the program as well. And if you deliver it, let's say it's an E.E. Cummings poem or something like that, delivering it in the original format is really important as well, because E.E. Cummings, if you're doing, I don't know, Little Man in a Hurry, the Eric Whitacre arrangement, you won't understand the interpretation completely if you don't see it, like how it was supposed to be written out, phrase by phrase, stanza by stanza in its poetic form. So I'm not even sure if I use those terms right, but like it needs to be in the form that it was originally supposed to be in, especially if it's a poem, because there's certain line breaks and things like that are intentional on behalf of the poet. So that's important. And then as far as adding maybe your little editorial commentary in the program or out loud, I mean, that's kind of, I don't always put written program notes besides text and translations. I'm a pretty happy speaker, so I don't mind giving my little editorial notes out loud. But if you're somebody who's terrified of speaking to your audience, I do expect you to speak to your audience anyway. But if you want to write it out, write out why this piece was so powerful for your kids. Write out a moment that you had in rehearsal where this piece just clicked for them. Like, try to make it relevant to the audience, not just like J.S. Bach lived from 1685 to 1750. Blah, 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 like, there's no reason to do historical stuff only. I mean, try to make it relevant for your audience. But one more thing, and tell me, we can stop me if this is too long.
Okay.
If you have a digital program, and I use Canva for my digital programs, you can download as a PDF with embedded links. So if you make a program on Canva, and I have a whole course on how to do this, by the way, you can actually make a link to the Wikipedia page or something like that of the composer. So there are these little Easter eggs that people can find while they're reading the digital program on their phone or their iPad while they're in your performance. And if they click J.S. Bach, they can receive historical, background on the composer J.S. Bach, or a particular piece that has a specific program notes written by the composer on the composer's website. You can include that in the program, and they can click that and read that at their leisure. And
nice.
They can read it afterwards or during the performance or before the performance, when it's all, when mom and dad got the best seat in the front row, and then now they're there 45 minutes ahead of time. What are they going to do now? Well, now they can read the program.
Yeah, I like that. All right. So we've talked about what to do before. We've talked about logistics leading up to. We've talked about what to program and how to, get the flow going and what to do in between songs. So let's say we've finished our performance. It's been amazing. Everybody's happy. There are small babies who are smiling and old ladies who are weeping. What next?
To kiss the babies. You have to kiss the babies. If you're going to be, a public figure, right? You got to kiss the babies, right? Before they leave.
What? We're not public figures. We're music teachers. What are you talking about?
Come on. We are the most public figure in the school. I would dare to say that we are more public than the principal. We get more face time with the public. And we are the politicians of the school. Because we're the most exposed of anybody.
That's so true. I just had to wipe a little tear from my eye because I totally agree with that.
Well, I hope Kleenex sponsors this episode.
Oh, maybe they should.
They should.
So I don't know about you guys, but I'm like on when I'm doing the show thing, and when it's over, I'm so ready to just be off. Preferably with like a margarita or like a really sparkly Moscato. But we can't turn it off right away, can we?
I'm a little more country than that. I keep the Booker's bourbon in the right drawer. No, I'm totally kidding. Okay, everybody, do not drink at school. Terrible idea. Okay. So here's how I feel about this. Make sure that you stay out in public view. Make sure you thank as many people as possible for coming. Make sure that you do not self-deprecate. This is so important for new teachers. Older teachers, I think, realize this now, but a new teacher downplays their ability by self-deprecation. And it's one of these things where, somebody comes up and they go, gosh, I really loved, I love that Moses Hogan spiritual that you all did. Who was it? The 8th grade choir, they did that. Yeah. That was so great. And then the teacher goes, or the conductor, teacher, whoever you want to call it, goes, yeah, that wasn't really as good as I thought it was going to be. Oh my God. Like, stop. Like, accept a compliment. Like, being self-deprecating is not being humble. Okay. It's being self-deprecating. So don't do it. Just accept the compliment. So what I tell my students, I tell them the same thing. The only response to a compliment is thank you. I am really glad you enjoyed it. That's it. Right? And if it's a negative comment that somebody's giving you or your students, shame on them, first of all. Mm-hmm. But if you have to engage somebody that's negative afterwards, you can look them right in the eye and say, well, what did you enjoy? Give them the old Frank Underwood, South Carolina House of Cards accent. Well, what did you enjoy
I
tonight?
like that.
And don't engage negativity. Redirect it. Do the you're doing the aikido of commentary. You are taking their energy and using it on themselves and redirecting it to make it positive, because you need to ensure as a leader that your students and your audience have a positive experience when you have a concert. So greet people, shake hands, kiss babies, and keep it positive.
So let me tell you what I like to say after, and I get a lot of compliments, of course. Of course. And I like to say, yeah, the kids did a great job, didn't they? Like, is that self-depreciating to me, or is that because I just really think that the kids did, like, I get that I did a lot of work, right? But I really want it to be more about them. So is it so wrong for me, Ryan, to say, oh, yes, thank you. The kids did a great job, didn't they?
No, I don't know. I think as long as you don't come across as facetious, I think that's fine. Yeah. I mean, it's, because I think one of the ways to phrase that type of thing is, you know what? This was their night. It's my job to prepare them. It's their job to do it, and they did it tonight.
Oh, well, that makes me feel so much better. I figure if it's been a few months after the performance and I still get a compliment, then I say, yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm really glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, listen, we had a teacher when I was teaching middle school that was in the same district, and she would have her daughter buy her flowers. She would take a collection from all of the children. All the kids in the grade level would bring $1, and then she'd give that $1 to her daughter, who was like college age or maybe a little older, and the daughter would present the teacher with flowers after the concert.
Oh my goodness.
And I went one time, and I went, oh, okay. Well, this is sort of when I coach teachers in the future, I'm going to tell them, don't buy flowers for yourself. Okay. Make it about the kids. Keep it about the kids. Okay. And don't steal a solo from a child that's supposed to have a solo. Okay. So make sure that the night's focus or the day's focus for that concert is on the kids, and you just be the facilitator.
Awesome.
And if you get a compliment, great. If somebody brings you flowers, okay, fine, but don't buy them for yourself.
Yeah. No, that's great advice.
I mean, why are you in education? You're not in it for the money. You're not in it for the glory, right? You're in it to instill wonderful things in the future generations of our country, right? So keep it about the kids.
Love it. All right. So anything else that we should do afterward, do you think? We've got everything cleaned up. When do we take the time to really analyze what we did and how we can improve personally? And do we do that with our students?
Well, Elise, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I think it's always important to debrief. What went well. This is with your kids, by the way. So you're and now in elementary school, you're probably not going to be able to do a hour-long debriefing session. You might just be sort of an informal, hey, what did you love about last night? Okay, great, I love this. Or what did your mom, or what did your dad or your aunt or your uncle, or your golden retriever say after the concert that they loved? Like, tell me what they loved, or pass out a little sheet and have them write it down or something. If it's younger kids that can't have like a real quiet, not super excited discussion. But if it's secondary school, you can probably dedicate the whole next class, or at least a large portion of the next class, to debriefing, because there are going to be some things that everybody will agree went well, and there are going to be some things that you as a director may have missed. The time when Susie had this amazing face when she hit that high C, or there's in the audience, just you could tell they loved it, but I'm not facing the audience, so I don't know. So you'll find some interesting things out there, but You'll also figure out some things that maybe made the students feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe logistically something didn't go well. But don't take the time to like trash something we all know didn't go well, right? Um, if there's a missed entrance, especially if it's like one student that missed an entrance, like set some ground rules, right? We're not going to single out individuals for any negative reasons in this discussion. Let's talk about things when it's a negative, because believe me, I know, we'll fix it. But things that maybe I didn't catch as a director, what are some of those things that we can talk about, positive and negative, and then how can we, tweak our system a little bit to make sure that the concert is even better the next time. Keep raising that bar.
Yeah, I love that. I usually tell my students when we're doing the post-performance assessment, what are 3 things that you really liked in either your performance or one that you heard that day? And then what are 3 things that we could do better, either you personally or we as an ensemble? Okay, so we've talked about how to prepare beforehand, what to do before, during, and after. Yeah, and we didn't even talk about promoting your performance and stuff like that. When I chatted with, it was a couple episodes ago, I chatted with Bruce Rockwell, and he actually gave us like this big, long performance promotion checklist that is super good and thorough. So maybe we'll include that either in a blog post or, we'll give our listeners some way to find that. But yeah, like learn how to write a press release and email it out to everybody. Like the more you can get the community to care about your program, the stronger advocates you're going to have, the easier time fundraising you're going to have, just really building that quote unquote choir nation, right?
Absolutely. Well, I'd be happy to, offer a free resource to your listeners if you'd like.
Absolutely. And I want you to talk about your Canva course as well.
Oh, okay. Well, so a couple different things here then. As a free sort of recap for this episode, if any listeners go to choir.ninja/mentor, then they can download a checklist that pretty much encompasses all of these points that we were talking about on the episode. But it's in a checklist format so that when we're going through and planning our concert, that we're able to just tick off those little things and those little principles that we spoke about today's episode. So that's at choir.ninja/mentor. And there too, I will leave a link to my course on Teachers Pay Teachers. So it's a course called Create Awesome Concert Programs Using Canva. And you can see that in the resources page on my website, choir.ninja, but I can even include a link on that choir.ninja/mentor page.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Cool. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Any final words of advice for creating the perfect performance?
Well, I think it's one overarching thing I would want to put on a billboard, if I could put it in front of every teacher's school, would be, program with your students in mind, not your ego.
My advice would just be have fun. Make it a fun performance, make it engaging, make it an emotional roller coaster. But you yourself, if you're having fun, then your students are going to be having fun. And if they're having a good time, then the audience will as well.
That's it. You're the leader.
Woo woo. Cool. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on as my guest host this episode. And I hope that, I know that we've offered some really great wisdom nuggets for our listening audience. So thank you so much.
I appreciate you having me on.
I know most of us are already looking at a holiday performance of some kind, and these ideas Ryan shared with us are just the ticket for ensuring a smooth and flawless performance. Join me on the next episode where I bring on the director and founder of the Dallas Brass, my good friend Michael Levine, who shares with us his tips for showmanship, how to take your already flawless performance to the next level and your ensembles to the next level as performers. You won't want to miss it. Don't forget to check out all of the blog posts, videos, and other resources on my website, professionalmusiceducator.com, as well as on the Smart Music blog, all contributed by functioning and fabulous music educators like yourself. Remember to use alfred.com to find your next show-stopping set of repertoire ideas. If you have any questions about this podcast or would like to offer your own brilliant performance ideas, I invite you to comment on this post or contact me via my Professional Music Educator Facebook page. I love to hear from all of you listeners. As always, my friends, thank you for joining me in the pursuit of music education excellence. Thank you for your dedication to the students who will become our leaders, our doctors, and our future teachers. You make a difference every single day. Please share this podcast with all your music teaching friends and colleagues, and be sure to rate us on iTunes so more music educators can get all the tricks and tips and advice. Thank you so much. Now, get back to planning your own perfect performance and keep teaching on.